All right, well, welcome back, and I'm happy to report that it is now time to start covering this plane. I've got my parts sanded, got the rudder, got the elevator, got the ailerons. I actually cut the ailerons today, and these are good to go. So now I'm ready to start covering it, and I've been thinking about the color scheme. All right, well, one of my all-time favorite planes is the Cessna Bird Dog. Now I like these little kind of scrappy planes. I like the Piper Cub, but I really love the Cessna Bird Dog. This was sort of a scout, reconnaissance, ground troop support, rescue operation, you name it, in Korea, in the Korean War, and also in the Vietnam War. But I just really like this plane a lot. The other thing you notice on these planes, and one thing I like about the color schemes, is that you see that they have this, let me see if I can find it. Well, the cover is a good example of it. They have, like, of course, the olive drab, but then they have like an orange or white stripe, for example. And this other book I have right here kind of shows another one of my favorites. Here again is this guy right here with the red and the olive drab. Now this is also used for training purposes. When they were flying, when they were doing training, in order so the planes could sort of see each other, they put these markings on the planes. But they also did that, do these markings to help protect the plane during combat. Because like I said, these were kind of low and slow, flying over the jungle or wherever they were, and then up above them, you had like the strike fighters or the ground attack planes, fighter planes and such, doing their runs, and they needed to be able to see these guys. So the color scheme was just really cool, and I've always liked it. So I'm thinking about doing something like that for this plane here. All right, so here are the colors I'm going to use. I'm going to use this it's monocoat, so I'm going to use this olive drab as the basic color for most of the airframe. And then I'm going to be using orange and maybe some white here and there. So let me show you the plane I was looking at and kind of thinking about. Obviously, this is not a scale plane, so I'm not trying to attempt to make a scaled version. I just want to use it as sort of a guide. So I like this dude right here, which this is the U.S. Marines, and it's camouflage, but I can just make this the olive drab, and then the top of it has that nice orange stripe on it, and it also has, I think it may have a little bit of orange up on top back in here. So the reason I want to do that also is because this is going to help me keep perspective of what the plane is doing when it's flying up in the air. Obviously, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you lose your sense of orientation of the plane when you're flying. So if I see that orange stripe, obviously I know I'm looking at the top of the plane. If I don't see that orange stripe, I know I'm looking at the bottom of the plane. So that's one of the reasons I want to do this. All right, well, before I move on to doing the covering, I do have one little thing I have to do, and that has to do with the tail, kind of the tail wheel structure that I'm going to be putting on. As I mentioned before, this was a tail dragger with a tail skid, and I'm going to go ahead and put a landing gear or a tail gear on it with this little bracket like this right here. So here is here's the back of the fuselage. Kind of goes like this, right? And then the tail bracket or the tail wheel bracket is going to go on sort of like that. Now here is the vertical stabilizer is right there, and the rudder is going to go like this onto here. Now, so what I'm going to do is, because this control rod is hollow on the inside, I can put this piano wire through it, and it will move freely. So it'll sort of act like a brace or a conduit to hold the piano wire. So I'm going to take one of these, and I'm going to glue it. And my picture is not the best picture, but I'm going to glue it like right here on the back of the fuselage. Right back here. And then I'm going to take another one, and I'm going to glue it along the bottom of the rudder. So that'll be like right on there. And then all I have to do is take the piano wire, which is this, and I just have to bend it so I can put the wheel on it. So let's say the wheel is around here somewhere. All I have to do is just take it in, make one bend, bring it up, oops, and then make another bend and bring it out. And by doing that, what will happen is when the rudder moves, obviously it's going to move the wire with it, and it's going to move the tail wheel with it. Now it's a little bit tricky because you have to make these bends sort of as you go. So the first bend I'll make will be this one, and then I'll put the whole wire through here, and then I'll bend it over this way and then cut it, and then at that point it'll be mounted to the the wire will be in the tail section, but then the rudder, last thing that's going to happen is the rudder will then just slide on over that piece of wire. So I think this is a pretty common way of kind of constructing a tail wheel anyhow. I think you'll see it in lots of kits and things, but it's actually a pretty simple thing to do. It's a simple modification, and it's going to make it nice because I can be able to use the rudder and basically have a steerable tail wheel. So that's how that's going to work. So before I do the monocoat, this is like one of the last things. The last thing I have to do is I have to glue a piece on here and glue a piece on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut the middle out so that I can put the elevator in eventually. But I have to do that first before I start covering with monocoat. All right, so let me go ahead and take care of this little step, and then I can move on to covering. So first of all, I want to cut these to the right size. This one's probably fine as is. I do want to have a little bit of, so this is kind of the way it's going to look on the plane. I want to have a little bit of space. I want to put it a little bit back here. And the reason that is, and also coming from the bottom, a little bit of space in between them like this. I don't want them on top of each other. They got to be a little bit further away. That's because when I bend the piano wire, it's going to make like sort of like a 90-degree angle, but it's not going to be a sharp angle. It's going to be kind of a curved angle. So you have to have enough room for that curve to be able to accommodate that curve. So you want to set these back a little bit of a distance from the hinge line. So this one's probably good as is. I'll probably put it somewhere like right about there. And then the other one, which I'm just going to go ahead and, it's right here. Let me move this back here. I'm just going to sit right here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give him a little bit of space here and a little bit of space. This is the bottom, and a little bit of space toward the top, which is here, the bottom here. So I don't want to flip this over. And then once I'm going to glue it on like this, and I mark the center line so I can line it up correctly. And then I'll come back and I'll chop out this middle section so I can put the elevator in there. So let me just go ahead and mark this about where I think it's going to be. And it's going to be probably, I'm just going to put it right about here, like that. All right, let's go ahead and cut this. All right. And then you just want to make sure that these are, so this is sort of, like I said before, this is the inner part of a control rod. I don't know what size this is. It's just the one that's working for me right now. You can even use the bigger outer one. This one just give you more, it would be a little bit sloppy. These are nice because at least it fits this size piano wire. I don't know wherever that went. But anyhow, I don't know where that, I'll have to find, oh, here it is. So it fits this one pretty good. So if you're doing something like this, it's sort of like a custom modification. You can kind of play with it and get the right, whatever size you need. For a bigger plane, you'll need obviously a thicker diameter or larger diameter piano wire. All right, so here's our two pieces. They're about the same, actually. All right, so let's glue these on where they need to, actually you need to cut this out. So I'm gonna cut out a little bit of a groove in the rudder so I can kind of sit this down and it kind of help support it a little bit. All right, so I got this, got these little groove made in my rudder, and I also made a little bit of a groove in the rear part of the fuselage here, and that's just to sort of help kind of hold this in place a little bit while I glue it in. Obviously, I don't want to go too deep on it because you don't want to cover up the hole. So you just want to have a little bit of a groove, just a little bit of a channel to help hold it straight while you glue it and keep it lined up. All right, so I'm just going to use my 5-minute epoxy and glue these on. Okay, a little bit of JB weld. Okay, and you notice again I'm using these little clamps to help kind of hold this straight up and down. This will work well for this little job. Make sure I got the right one of these. key here is not to get any inside of the control rod. That's probably good enough right there. Now when I put the monocoat on, that'll help hold it also. So this will be plenty strong. Okay, good. So put this over here by the Wolfman. And I can do this one. All right, so there we have it. So again, I use a little bit of parchment paper, or you can use wax paper to kind of hold this down, and then when it cures up, I won't glue the masking tape or whatever to the item that I'm gluing. It's a cool little trick. So we'll just let this cure up for a while. It's only 5-minute epoxy, so it won't take long. And here's our rudder. Okay, well this is while these are curing up, I'm going to talk about the tools I'm going to be using for the covering. So I have a couple things. Well, first, let me get this out of the way. So here's my iron. This is actually a Thunder Tiger iron. It's pretty old. Works pretty good still. I don't have a sock. Socks are good to have on here to help you kind of keep from scratching, and kind of it helps also kind of if you spread. Sometimes you get some of the pigment comes off the monocoat, and it's a good way to try to keep things clean. So I have that. Then I have this kind of trim, sort of like detailing iron, and there's actually another piece that I can use, but I'm just going to use this rounded. I typically use this one because it's flat on one side, and then it's rounded on the other side. And it's got a point, so this is good for kind of getting into details and such. This is a hanger 9 version. Then I have a couple heat guns. So this is just a Wagner paint heat gun. Now you'll see these heat guns for the monocoat covering or other type of covering. There's other coverings too also. Monocoat's not the only one. There's several others. Solartex, there's Hanger 9 has their Ultra Coat or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different kinds. So pick the one you like the best. But I'm using monocoat, as I said. But you don't need to have like a special heating gun for this. So this is just a paint stripper, and it's kind of the same price. I think it's a Wagner, so it's a really good quality, and it has a high and low setting, and I believe that the temperature rating on this is kind of exactly the same thing. So if you see those heat guns, you can get them from the hobby suppliers, but you can also just go to Home Depot and grab one of these. Then I also have this. This is actually for shrink tubing. This came with a shrink tubing kit for electrical work, and it's cool because it's actually kind of, it's a very kind of concentrated deal. If you have one of these, you don't really need one of these, but I just have this also. So this sometimes I use this. Again, this is for like shrink tubing that you put around electrical wires and stuff. So that's kind of cool. Okay, the other thing I have, or that I use, are these terracotta pots. So these are great for kind of for safety purposes. You can put your iron inside here. In fact, I have kind of the plate that goes on the bottom too. Go to your garden center and grab a couple of these, and when you get done using your irons, you can stick them in the pot like this. You can put them in there while you're using them. A lot of times I'll just flip this over, and I'll have my iron up on there like this, like that. And this is not going to catch on fire, right? And it's a pretty good insulator also. So I recommend, if you're going to be doing this kind of work, you can try using these. You can also use just the big dishes they have and stuff, but anything kind of ceramic like that, I think this is a really good idea. So I leave my stuff inside here, both when I'm using it and then when I'm not using it. All right, so that's it for this video. I realized I kind of blabbed a lot about the colors I'm using and some of the techniques I'm going to be using, and of course I did this little deal over here. So I'm going to wait till the next video to actually start putting on monocoat. But until then, thanks for watching, and please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.